He's a living Savior. Live and act as though he's dead. He's not dead.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the next Minisode of the Appalachian Disciples. I am Tommy, and I'm joined here with a guy who does not like mint ice cream and Butterfingers and Satan. Cody, how are you doing?
I mean, every one of those things is true. Honestly, you probably couldn't have described me any better.
And
I think the other two things you mentioned are from Satan, so you can just say I don't like Satan, and then we're good.
And that's it for this episode, everybody. Thank you for listening.
No, we're not sponsored by Butterfinger.
Yeah, I just found out that he does not like Butterfinger, and I'm saddened by it.
Not at all. That is the candy of Satan.
No, it's amazing, and we're going to fight to the death for it.
It sticks in your teeth so you can't spread the gospel.
But man, we've been. That's hilarious.
That would take a second to register. Huh?
Yeah, I like that one.
Oh, there you go.
Man, we've this is coming out a little bit late, but we've had some milestones lately. I just celebrated my 20th wedding anniversary.
Whoop, whoop.
And you celebrate. I'm going to insert one of those little air horns.
Yeah.
And you celebrate your third.
Yep,
which
it is.
which I think is amazing. You know,
big 3-0, man. 3 years married, 0 years divorced. Got this.
Yeah. And you just got back from Maine.
I did.
You went up there, and that's near Oklahoma. Hi, Carolyn. How are you doing?
Yeah, my wife is. Man, geography is not her subject.
Geology is not her subject.
Nah, it's not. It's not her thing. But yeah, man. So it has been pretty crazy here lately. Thinking back at that last episode, we talked a lot about that even if stuff, right? We talked to our listeners about thinking after that episode and coming up with what their even if statement is. What's that one thing that you're kind of holding from God? And even if you don't see a healing, even if you don't see financial breakthroughs, like what is that in your personal life? So I felt like we just kind of needed to break that down a little bit more, talk about that in a little bit more of a practical sense for this mini-sode, because I felt like we had a little bit more to say.
Yeah. No, you're right. We talked about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Habakkuk, and we even talked about, I believe, Job, right? It's getting you through all those tough times. It builds you up when you overcome an obstacle and you stay strong in the faith, even if it's not the answer you wanted. It does build character. It does build your faith and basically your closeness to God.
Yeah.
Because when, let's just hypothetically say, I had faith in this thing, and then God got me through it. And then all of a sudden I'm in another trial. I can look back, and this is why it's important to write it down. And I'm going to look back and be like, man, like he got me through all of that. Why is this going to be any different?
Yeah, I think it's honestly, I don't want to say like a mantra or something.
Matcha, that's mint, matcha mint. So
there you go. But it should be something that you repeat to yourself continually, right?
Right.
That God, think about where we talked about Jesus in Gethsemane when he was praying, and he was like, Father, if there's any way that this cup can pass me, then, let that happen. But if not, nevertheless, not my will, but your will be done, right? So even Jesus was like, this is not going to be fun. And if there's another way, let's take that route, right? But if there's not, nevertheless, let your will be done. So I think that's what we're getting at when we say these even if statements is it should be, it's going to be something that bothers you, right? Literally, just this example that we gave, it was bothering Jesus. So why should we think that what we're going through is not going to bother us either?
Right. Well, and basically you're declaring it. So like, for me, and not in a boastful way, because how some people will say something like, well, God will get me through this, and and sometimes I'm like, I'm not in the mood to hear that right now.
Absolutely.
I'm having a really bad day. But I think it's important to talk about that. Like, so when you're declaring it, you're like, man, so here's what's up. So like in the let's just say I had like some battles or whatever, or even an illness, and God got me through it and we overcame it, and someone's just asking me about it. I'm going to sit here and say, you know what? It sucked really bad. However, the thing that kept me going, man, I was plugged into the Bible. I was plugged into my brothers or my sisters. I was plugged into community. And I knew that even if God didn't get me through this, I still had my brothers that are going to be on the other side of this to help me through the next stage of whatever it may be. And I know on the next stage of it, God's still going to be there. He's literally walking by, and you tell people that while you're going through it and after you're going through it, and it's going to help people.
It's going to help you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where the transformation is going to happen. You know, like declaring it is obviously something that's powerful, but living it out and doing that, talking to other people, that's where the real transformation happens.
Right.
So I think breaking this down into some simple steps, right? The 4 biggies. You definitely mentioned the first one was write it down and reflect on it all the time, right? Like it shouldn't just be something you write down once and then you forget about it. It definitely should be something that you come back to regularly.
Some people
right?
put like a Post-it note on their bathroom mirror.
Yeah. On your refrigerator, in your car,
Yeah.
you know, anything like that. If it doesn't even have to be something as formal as that. If you have like a journal you want to write down and like what you're talking about and go back and reflect on it later, I mean, that would work too. But I think if there's power in writing it down. You know, I'm an educator, so I'm always big on taking notes and writing things down. You're going to remember it more. There's stuff to that.
Right.
There's lots of studies that you're going to remember those things better. And then when you are going through something and you're maybe not getting the answer that you want, it's something that you can turn back to and reflect on. But you also kind of jumped into step 2 there that I think is very important, and that is share it with somebody, right?
Right.
So don't keep it to yourself, because I'm a firm believer in my life and the things that we've gone through is I will talk about it. I'm not a like, this is my business, stay out of it type of person. I mean, some stuff clearly, like I don't
Right.
want people's nose in my business for some stuff, but like a trial that is just really overwhelming me or something, I actually really like talking about it. I'll talk to whoever, to friends, to family, to coworkers or whoever, and just openly talk about it. I like to hear other people's perspectives at some points, but in this instance, it's so important that you share it, because what if you're going through something very similar?
Exactly.
You're not getting the answer you want from your prayers. You're not getting the outcome that you're going to want. I'm not getting it. This is where, you know, our last minisode, we talked about iron sharpening iron, right? So that's how can iron sharpen iron if iron is not with each other? Like
Right.
we're not sharing these things, right?
And also, even if like you said, the person has experience in that, you know, they could be going through the same thing right now, or they've gone through it before, or they're literally like, it's something that they think that they haven't gone through, but that is a very big possibility. I could go through this. Let's walk together in this. And I mean, it also comes down to who you're hanging out with. I don't want to get personal here because this is their story, but like if you're hanging out with a bunch of like knuckleheads and they're doing stuff that you know is not going right and is going against what you believe, you probably shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
And so if that person's struggling with it, say it's alcoholism, and they're at a bar and you're struggling with alcoholism and you're at a bar, that's probably not the...
Yeah, you're kind of setting it up.
You're
You're setting yourself up for failure. It's kind of like an alcoholic, like you said, going to a bar. Like maybe that's not your mission field, right?
Yeah.
Like you know where your weaknesses are.
Well, we had at our church here, I don't know if they still do this, but they used to have a ministry, because we have a, you know, even though, you know, West Virginia is amazing, it's beautiful, but we have some strip clubs here, and we used to have a ministry that would be women that would go to the strip club and minister to the girls before they go to work. And there's a reason why the guys don't do it.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
So it's like, know where you're at. And, you know, but at the same time, that's a little bit different, but like you can minister to the guys in the parking lot before they go in.
Yeah.
But me being a man, you being a man, that is a little too tempting to be there.
Right. But you know, in you and I having a relationship, being close as what we are, we keep each other accountable, and we also give encouragement to each other.
Right.
You know, and then accountability and encouragement is where you're going to find long-term growth. That's where you're going
Right.
to find that faith. Because when I'm struggling, you're going to speak life into me, or when
Right.
you're struggling, you're going to speak life, or I'm going to speak life into you. And we know that we're also going to call each other out if we're being like, hey, that's a little rough. Maybe you should just kind of bring it down a couple notches. You know, we're going to be the first people to do that too. So yeah, I mean, if you want long-term growth, you kind of need another person there to help keep your accountability.
And I think you said growth, and I got to tell a story, because I could look back at young Tommy and Tommy now, and where things would happen now, and I'd fall back then, but not now. You and I were at a concert.
Oh gosh.
And it was the funniest thing. because old Tommy would have basically fallen for that. I to make a long story short, I had a girl hit on me, and I basically just said, like, I'm married and thank you, and turned around.
Well, you got to give us a little context. This girl reaches over and kind of grabbed you on the shoulder, yeah, and was like, "You're really attractive." And I was so impressed by this. He immediately, without skipping any beats, because even like there wouldn't be ill intention. My first thing, being from West Virginia, I've been like, "Well, thank you," but I'm married. Yours was not. Yours was like, "Yeah, and I'm married," and I was like.
And she got
whoa.
mad.
Yeah, she was mad. She was like, "Whoa!"
She's like, "That's not what I said." She goes, "I said you're really cute." I go, "Well, thank you." I turned around, started watching the concert. The funniest thing of the whole thing was your face.
I was like, "Did that just happen?" I was like, "Dude, I'm so impressed by that." I was like, "I can't wait till we get back in West Virginia." I said, "The next time I see your wife, I'm like, your dude is the most loyal guy ever." So you're right, but I have full faith and confidence that if I was there or not, you would have had that. But I was just so.
But the thing
impressed.
is I didn't even think about it. It just came so naturally to me. I wasn't like, okay, how the devil on his shoulder, angel on the other. No, the devil wasn't even there.
Yeah, it was like boom.
Even though we said we were going to hell for going to that concert.
Yeah.
By, street preachers out front. But I'm like, I'm good.
The artists.
But it's, I saw at that moment, I wasn't impressed with myself. I was just like, okay, I've seen growth, because old Tommy would have fallen for that immedely. I'm like,
well, kudos to you, man.
And I didn't even have to, you don't have to think about it. So like, and that's the thing too. I'm like, let's just hypothetically say you were single and you would have been like in that mode, like where like, yep, like I would totally go for that. But you saw that and you're like, okay, I am now, I think motivated and encouraged a little bit that you can say no, or like,
yeah,
or if it was a drink or something, like an alcoholic drink, I said no. Okay, cool.
I was there for that accountability, and then I was also there for the encouragement, because it really impressed me.
Yeah.
So that's where your long-term growth has come from, right? I'm not saying for me, but
yeah,
in essence, that's part of it, right?
And I'm just proud that I still got it.
Yeah, look at you. And his head just got 3 sizes too big.
I mean, the lights were dark, so she probably thought I looked like Brad Pitt for all
there
I
you
know.
go. But, okay, so the third step, so we've talked about, that's kind of like a humanly help, right? But we're all about Christ and how much Christ can help us through these situations. And in these even if statements where we're not getting the answer we want, it's important to pray through it, right?
Right.
Not to kind of push it off to the side and be like, oh, well, God, he knows what's going to happen. And he knows long before the path that was laid out for your life, he wants to be there to help you, to encourage you, even when you're in those dark situations. It could just be very simple, like creating some type of a prayer format that you say in your daily prayers and things like that on the regular. Like, Lord, I'm trusting you, even if blank, help my unbelief.
Right.
It very well could be something simple like that. But it's going to help anchor down that even if statement. And it's not going to be on your own willpower, but it's going to be on the faith that you're growing on this long-term growth. So I wanted to make that clear for our listeners, that it's not like, okay, just trust in God, and even if he doesn't, you're going to do this on your own. But that's not what I'm getting at. I'm saying, like, even if God is still good, even if God doesn't answer it the way you want to, he's still walking right beside of you. Talk to him,
right,
and anchor it down in faith, not your own willpower.
And I think I've applied this in my life pretty heavily the past couple of days. We're recording this on, the 18th of June. And we got a lot of garbage going on in the world with wars and just, riots and stuff. And then
there's a war? I didn't hear anything about that.
Well, it's the war that's been going on since the beginning of time.
The one that will never end?
Yeah, except they're not throwing stones.
Until it does end?
Yeah. So, and that stuff depresses me. And so, and then that's on my back burner. But then, my daughter, she just did her first trip driving to Charlotte, which is the big city. And
let's go, Evelyn.
It was a little stressful towards the end because, they didn't realize you got to be 21 to have a hotel. So, they had to drive back the same day. So she was not happy.
I bet.
But at the same time, though, like the night before, I had a lot of anxiety about what if something happens to her? Because this is she, as a parent, I'm like sitting there, is she too young? But at the same time, I also know like at some point you got to let the birdie fly or she's never going to learn. And so I prayed that night. I was praying heavily, man. It's been a long time since I've done that heavy. I prayed one for Evelyn, that she was safe, that she got down there. And if there was any problems, because there is going to be a problem, that is problems she can learn from and that she could grow from it. And because she was doing the city part, that she could also be a light to her friend. And I'm like, so I was praying for that. I was praying for our world right now, because it reminds me of COVID, man. Like the anxiety, the depression sits in. So I'm like, you know what, God, if even if like Evelyn has an issue, I still trust you that you're going to make this good. And even if something bad did happen, I still trust you. And that's hard, because you're literally like submitting to that. And it's just natural human to like not want to give in like that.
Right. So continuing on with that step 4, I think this one is really important. And I think that above the other 3, those are great. They're, writing it down and praying about it and stuff. But this is the real challenge, right? To me, anyway, in my walk, is look for God's faithfulness even when the situation doesn't change. What is God doing right now? Like, so the healing's not coming, but the bills are paid.
1,000%.
Right.
My wife reminds me of that all the time.
I lost my job, but for some reason, I'm not behind in my bills. Right? Like, I'm going through a rough patch in my relationship, but they've still not left. What are those types of things? Look for God's faithfulness, because he said, I'll never leave you and I'll never forsake you.
Right.
So he's literally right there, but you sometimes, and there's a really good book. I think it's In the Wilderness, I think is the name of it. It's a John Bevere book. I think that's the name of it.
Is that the one that changed names?
Yeah, I can't remember exactly the name of it, but if you just look up Wilderness and John Bevere, it'll pop up. But he talks about in that book how sometimes it's more difficult for you to find God because God is watching you grow.
Yeah.
Right? Like God is, there's these situations that he is allowing to happen. I'm not saying that he caused it and all. That's a whole nother theological debate. But
right.
But there's situations that you're going through that you are going to grow from. Sorry. And it's going to be harder for you to find God in those instances. So it's really important that in those valleys, we're like, where is God? Or God, where are you? That is the instance where you really need to dig in. You got to dive in and dig your heels in and say, no matter what, no matter how bad the situation gets, no matter if this prayer is being answered or not the way I want it to, no matter what, God is good, period. And you just kind of die on that hill.
I can't count how many times I've been like upset with work, and we've been so close to like where we have to like not scrounge for money, but be very, very frugal. And I automatically get to this point to where I'm like, I can't believe I don't have this much money. I want to be able to do this. I want to be able to do this. And Steph goes, well, our bills are paid. So that's what we're supposed to do. Like, our bills are paid. We have food. Like we have electricity. We have a house. We have cars. But, I'm like, big picture. But at the same time, that shows how greedy I am, because like, Tommy 20 years ago would have been loving where I'm at right now, but it's never good enough for me. And so like, I like that though. 'Cause it's like, like I said, she reminds me all the time. She goes, but God, it has taken care of us, for what we need. And sometimes it's hard for me to look in that, 'cause I greedily want more.
Yeah. I mean, that's just human nature, right? Like, and we want it our way. We want it now. It's like it's Subway, Subway Christianity, or is that Burger King? One of them where it's like
one of them.
Your way now or whatever. You can have it your way. That's not the way that God works.
Right.
He gives us our free will to make our decisions and stuff. But as far as God answering our prayers and intervening on our behalf, it's not like we rub a genie lamp and God comes out and answers it the way we want to. That's not the way it works.
Well, he never promised that everything's going to go great.
Right.
We're going to have
lots of trials, lots of tribulations. And when we think of that, we think of like outward, the world attacking us. We don't think like a health issue or, a relationship issue. Like that's a trial and a tribulation as well.
Right.
So I think that starting with a journal, writing it down is very important. Talking about it with somebody, find somebody that you can do this iron sharpening iron. Pray through it regularly and constantly, and then look for God's faithfulness.
Right.
Like God is right there with you walking through this. Look for him and he will show himself.
Right.
Right. So, as far as like the even if statements, I think that that's the most practical thing is start at step 1 and write it down.
Right.
Work through these 4 steps and watch God's faithfulness move.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Especially if it's something you're going through, like that's big. I mean, I'm not talking like, God, get me through this day today at work. Even if I have a bad day, I'm like, because you could throw the big problems at them.
Oh yeah, it's the little stuff for me that I have a hard time throwing stuff at.
I'm like, that's petty.
Yeah, I feel like some stuff's petty.
But there's times where I'm literally like almost in tears, like Jesus at Gethsemane, where I'm like, like, God, please take this from me.
Yeah.
Even if you don't, like, teach me what I need to learn from this so I can maybe help others, or even I can learn from this again, because when I go to another trial, I can look back and I'll be like, you know what, man, I conquered something way bigger than this.
Yeah. And, kind of wrapping up this episode, because I felt like this was kind of a hard one to bring because there's so much that we can dive into with this. I didn't want to drag it on too much for this minisode, but I really liked this this statement. It was, your even if statement is not the end of your story. It's the start of deeper trust.
I like that.
Yeah. So just know that even when times are dark, even when it's time, or the time that you're in is really hard to find God, He's there. And this is just the beginning of a deeper trust and a deeper relationship with Him.
Right.
So
good stuff, my man.
Yeah, man. Looking forward to hearing. Shout out to all of our new listeners now. You guys are keeping us going for sure. Really appreciate it. Share the podcast with some friends, co-workers, family members across different states. Last I checked, I think we're in 32 states now. Ooh. So we've cleared the halfway mark. We're getting there. Trying to reach those lost people. So give us a shout out at the Appalachian Disciples at gmail.com. If you have any questions or anything like that, follow us on social media. And just give us a like and a share.
Sounds good, man. Well, until next time, dude.
Peace out.
Somewhere along the line, we've lost the meaning of discipleship.